What's up, everyone, and welcome back to episode 21 of the Ball Talk Pod. For those listening on the night of the Thunder Nuggets game, the second game of the back-to-back, breaking news, the Nuggets just hit another three. Chris.
They could not miss. It was an incredible show from Nikola Jokic, especially from the other Canadian on the other side of the team. He was unstoppable. Jamal Murray felt like he couldn't miss tonight, Ben. What do you think about Jamal Murray's performance?
You know, it's one of those situations where yesterday watching the game, and the Thunder won handily yesterday, blowout fashion. Well, they ended up blowing them out. It was a close game for about three quarters. Jamal Murray did not play great yesterday.
No.
And he was 6 of 17, 1 of 5 from 3, 17 points, and a 127-103 loss to the Thunder. And, I mean, even on Twitter and things like that, throughout the game, it was like, okay, Jamal's missing some shots that are open. Like, he just wasn't hitting shots.
Right.
I think some of that had to do with the defensive intensity and then also just shot making. Tonight, it was absolutely flipped. I mean, what was he tonight? He was flipping back and forth. He had 34 points on 11 of 22 shooting, 4 rebounds, 6 assists.
9 from 9 from the free throw line.
Yeah, foul merchant. He's 3 of 7 from 3, but, I mean, every 3 the Nuggets hit felt timely. Russ hit 3 threes tonight. He played awful last night. He missed we were trying to come back in the fourth when it got stretched to double digits, and my wife leaned over to me after Russ missed a long 2, and she was like, "Do you think he did that on purpose?"
You would like to think so.
I was like, "I would like to think so." And then the very next possession, he hit a 3 in the corner, and I was like, "Oh, he can't make it obvious, I guess."
Yeah, he's got to at least try to win the game.
I mean, going into this weekend, and we haven't talked to y'all since before the Blazers game either, which was awesome, super fun game.
We can talk about that last.
The split with the Nuggets, I think, is kind of, I wouldn't say expected. Like we've said before, I almost expect this team to win every game. But if you told me we were going to go 1-1, that's probably fine, especially considering if you had to tell me we won the national television game on ABC versus the NBA TV game on Monday night, I would take that. I would take the Sunday win. I think Shea clinched MVP yesterday.
But then you look at, the discourse is such a yo-yo on a string. There, one day the national media, and I guess maybe it's just social media, is chanting Shea, Shea, Shea. The next day they can't get over Nikola Jokic, who plays incredible. But I think Shea's had it locked up for a while.
I agree. I just think, as we've said before, I just don't think he could have lost. Like best case scenario, obviously, if Jokic and the Nuggets had come in and won both of these games, then it gets kind of dicey.
Right.
But Shea played phenomenal yesterday. He had 40. I mean, we'll break down that game here in a second, but it's just, there's too big of a gap between the Thunder and the Nuggets and the Thunder and the rest. I mean, even with this loss tonight, the Thunder still have an 11-game lead on Denver, who is the second place team in the West. It was up to 12 after yesterday's. It's been too good of a season for the Thunder, too good of a season for Shea. Jokic has been amazing. If he wins it, I'm not saying he's not deserving. I just think it would be very bad for the NBA in terms of narrative and discord, and it would change everything they've ever said about the MVP. Because we should have just gone and given it to LeBron
every year.
The last 20 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was listening. So me and my wife listened to the Thunder post game as we drive home on 98.1, and they do a great job covering it, and they have some fun callers. But I can't remember if it was Matt Pinto or is it Matt Ravis and Gideon Hamilton. One of them suggested that there should be 2 awards. One, the MVP, which is the most valuable player on the team that win. That's a winning team, right? And then there's a most outstanding player who is having an incredible individual season regardless of team success, which would kill the discourse they're having now between Shea and Jokic. So I like that idea. But then, it sort of goes along with the way that Jalen Williams views the defensive player of the year. He thinks there should be a guard and a post because they're asked to do completely different things.
I get that, but that almost, like, Alex Caruso was asked this the other day, and he was asked about J-Dub's take that there should be 2 defensive player of the year, 1 guard and 1 center or 1 post. And Caruso was of the mind, it was like, no, like, give it to 1 guy. Like, you've earned it. I understand that there's some things that are unfair or whatever, but like 99% of the players in the NBA aren't playing defense to win a depoy.
Right.
They're not playing hard to win a depoy. They're trying to. Depoy almost feels like an anomaly. Rudy Gobert's won so many, it feels like it doesn't mean as much.
Yeah.
So I get the thought, but then this drama and this discussion and the toxicity on Twitter and X and everything that comes into that is what makes the NBA amazing. In baseball,
you love toxic behavior.
I just creates entertainment.
Yeah, that's true.
Me some entertainment. In baseball last year, you had Ohtani and Judge, and Ohtani was like far and away the best player. But there at least was somewhat of a conversation between Judge. Bobby Witt was right there for Kansas City. Ohtani was so good, there wasn't too much of a discussion. But even like the Judge people and the Witt people kind of were like, no, Ohtani's great. And there was just like, everyone just kind of coasted into it. It was no problem. And some people enjoy that. And I'm not saying that all the toxicity is great, because there's some stuff that's just like, we're just reaching for anything we can hold on to.
Yeah, grasping for straws.
There's a play yesterday in the game that the Thunder won where Westbrook kind of undercut Shea on a pull-up in the middle of the paint. It's gone NBA viral, I would say, at least viral amongst the NBA community on X. Shea rises up for a jumper. Westbrook hits his legs. It's not like a lot of contact, but it is a foul. And whenever that happened, you had just people all over Twitter like, this is the definition of a foul merchant for Shea. Because they said he contorted his body. It wasn't a natural jump shot. And arguably, it was more impressive that he was able to get a shot off and did what he did to draw that foul. You fast forward to tonight, Jamal Murray had 2 or 3 plays where he's not looking to shoot. He's not looking to put a shot up that's actually competitive. And mainly it was Isaiah Joe and then I believe Lou Dort, where they're all over him in a good way. They're playing fantastic defense. Murray gets them off their feet. They're still parallel, but he jumps forward into them and they call a foul. It's the same thing that you're talking about for Shea. It's basketball. It's what we've talked about, and you've said several times. When did it become a bad thing to get to the free throw line?
Apparently it's been the last 2 years. People hate it. Because I would like to go back and look at like Kobe specifically. I would say like Tim Duncan, Shaq. Like, I know those guys are like post players, but like Kobe or Allen Iverson, those type of guys, and see what kind of fouls they were getting. How often were they getting the free throw line? I would venture to say it's very similar to what Shea is doing. Obviously, he didn't come up with this idea of, forcing contact. He learned it from somewhere. It's been in basketball for such a long time. So that discourse does get a little tiring, but I think you're right that the sort of back and forth the NBA loves, because it keeps them relevant, and that toxic-ish behavior is something that they're going to continue to feed into.
Yeah.
Which for, for people who like both players or, are like Shea, it's just sort of like, why are we still having this conversation when, they're 11 games up? It's just a little annoying.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about Sunday's game.
Sure.
Start that
well,
off.
let's go ahead and wrap up tonight's game. The Nuggets down the stretch executed to a level we haven't seen against the Thunder this year. They were incredible.
It's not sustainable.
They were 78% from 3 in the second half.
They shot better from 3 than they did from 2.
Yes, they were. It was an unbelievable performance. Jokic was incredible. It felt like every time the ball had a chance to go the Thunder's way, Jokic was right there, and he got the ball and he shot a 2-foot jump shot. It just seems to go their way tonight. And on the other end, it felt like we had a lid on our basket. Someone like Russell climbed up there and put a clear lid so that we couldn't make any shots. It just felt like everything was rolling around. So hats off to the Nuggets. They played really well.
We didn't hit shots. And I say that we shot 40% from 3. We had 19 threes tonight. I mean,
but I wonder how much of that is from the half. How much is that from the first half?
That second quarter, we were 8 of 9 from 3. So, I mean, obviously, it fell off a little bit in the second. The biggest story, I have a couple to touch on this. The biggest story was J-Dub got hurt and left the game probably with like 4 or 5 minutes left in the second quarter.
Yep.
And it was unfortunate because he was playing phenomenal after backing up what he did on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I think you were about to say he had 6 assists before.
In 13 minutes.
Yeah, before he got hurt. But he was driving. I think it was Zeke Naji, who's the Nuggets backup big that really only plays whenever Aaron Gordon's hurt, who missed tonight's game. He was driving to the left down the baseline. There was a foul call, and Dub kind of stayed down for a minute. He was grabbing at his hip. And he got up. He was down for a little bit, and at least in a way that it was kind of like, okay, get up, like you've been down a minute.
Yeah.
No one rushed over to him outside of the players that were on the court. He gets up. He's kind of doing this walk where he's trying to like stretch out his hip and do. I mean, it worked enough. He hit the free throws. He comes down. You can tell he's like kind of communicating on the bench or on the court. Like I can't guard Jamal, or I can't like I'm playing off of on Christian Brown, Westbrook, whoever it was. But he didn't ask to come out. He comes back down. He misses a 3. We get a rebound. We pass it to him, and he shoots it and makes it. The issue is
looked like he was using all arms.
He didn't. He got 0 lift. It was an Osborne jump shot. There was 0 lift on either of those 3s. He cashed it. It was fine. He comes out of the game. Shea comes back in, and he immediately goes up the side tunnel. He's announced at halftime that he had a right hip strain. He wasn't going to return. Thunder play in Boston on Wednesday, so it'll be interesting to see if he's able to play. I would bet no.
I would say no. I mean, why risk it? Did you see that? Speaking of Boston, little side tangent. Kristaps Porzingis is dealing with an unidentified illness.
Yeah, he needs to stay away from our locker room.
Yeah. He should not be. He should have to be tested for everything.
We have enough problems with hips. We don't need anything else in that locker room.
100%.
We're dealing with bad hips. The hips are lying right now. So Dub, number 1, was hurt. He was playing great. And 2, Chet played tonight for the first time in the second night of a back-to-back since his injury. It was very obvious it was his first time to play a second night of a back-to-back since his injury.
He looked really rocky. Mm-hmm.
In a game that, especially without Dub, like he came out when Dub was announced out, it was like, crap, who are we going to play in that start of the fourth quarter? Chet's going to have to play well. He was 3 of 11 tonight, 0 of 5 from 3, 8 points, 4 rebounds. I mean, he had like 2 points going into the fourth. He just was not assertive. He was a little tired. You could tell, like, even there was a couple times on his threes, he missed a couple. And then like the 4th and 5th time he caught it was open. And instead of just like rising and shooting and you live with the make or miss, he like kind of hesitated and was like, well, let me get set and gather. And you could tell he was thinking through it too much. And it's funny. He's so serious about it because like even in warmups tonight, I was shout out to my buddy Jason who got me access to hang out courtside while the guys were warming up tonight. And Chet's out there, and every time he misses a shot, whether it's he's running and doing any kind of drill for a jumper at the free throw line or a pin down action to a 3, he's like cussing up a storm and pissed off at himself if he misses a single shot. So there were a lot of curse words coming out of number 7 tonight during that game.
Yeah. He played.
I was going
he
to
did
say,
look
like,
tired.
you asked, you go for it. I just don't know how else to say. He was tired. It's not something I think that's a negative per se, because it's the first one, as we've mentioned, since the All-Star break. This is all experimental between now and the playoffs. I wouldn't say I'm like worried about it, but you definitely, we're not going to play. I guess the biggest comfort is that there will not be second night of back-to-backs in the playoffs.
Right. He'll have that at least a full day's rest. So
sometimes 3 and 4.
Yeah, but it is good to see him get out there and try. You know, you like to see he has no minutes restrictions. And Mark said earlier today, if he had minutes restrictions, he wouldn't be playing, which is sort of like the Thunder way. So I think we missed Dub specifically like at the start of the fourth quarter. We had kind of faltered a lead.
We were down 2 going into the fourth or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And we had faltered a lead. And that's where the Nuggets really took a hold of the game and were able to kind of stretch that lead. And then Jokic came back and he was just in all the right places. So I think if we would have had Dub on the defensive end, especially on the offensive end, kind of driving and being that playmaker that he's developed into the last, 2 months, it would have been really helpful, and we might not have been, 10 points down by the time Shea came back. Who came back with 8 minutes left or 9 minutes left, something he doesn't usually do.
It wasn't like too crazy early compared to normal, but it was definitely earlier.
Right, which makes sense. J-Dub's not in, so it's like.
From the third quarter into the fourth, Caruso had an and-1 layup after they kind of stretched out the lead, and that stopped an 18-2 run.
Yeah, we just could not score.
And there were several moments in that game, first half and second half, where we were up 6 to 8 points, and we'd get a stop and come down, and we'd miss a 3 to just stretch it to double digits. We had a couple times that it was a double-digit lead tonight, but we'd miss it, and usually they weren't like close misses. Like a couple of them were bad. They'd get the ball, and they'd go hit a corner 3 or get some kind of action where instead of we're extending it, they go on like a 4 or 6 point spurt, and it's still a 1-possession game. Like, we just could never find that traction to go extend a 6 to 8 point lead to 14 to 16.
Yeah.
Which is where, like, momentum is, like, it's hard to come back once you eclipse that, like, 12-point lead, it feels like, in the NBA. Obviously, we've given up runs bigger than that, but there's just, like, a mental thing of, oh, we're down now.
Right.
Like, down. But before we move on, want to give a shout-out. Isaiah Hartenstein played phenomenal tonight, especially in that first quarter. I think he had 13 in the first.
Yep.
Ended with 18, so obviously cooled off a little bit. But he had a lot of momentum in that first. I thought we were going to run away with it with how we were playing, especially with him hitting shots. Our threes felt, we were 8 of 9 in the second quarter. But then Dub gets hurt. Obviously, it's not necessarily an excuse. Nuggets were without Aaron Gordon, but it just was too much tonight. Denver executed, obviously,
shot the ball incredibly well.
But before we move on to the first game, I'll give a shout out to my buddy Breek, who I even was texting out like, hey, it's one of those nights they're hitting everything. And Breek brought up the point. You are an elite defense. Prove it. Like, elite defenses don't give up these open shots, because it's not like they were hitting like hand in the face. They hit some open shots and they hit some tough shots, but we gave them some easy looks that I don't think would have been there on a normal night for this defense. So it's not like discouraging. It's just a bummer. Everyone has those nights, especially on the second night of a back-to-back. But Breek texted that, and I was like, you know what, Breek, you're right. What the heck are we doing?
Get you fired back up.
Yeah. But
yeah, it would have been nice to contest some of those shots. And I thought we did in the second half better, but I thought in the second half they made a lot of tough shots. But there were some.
The ball just bounced their way too. Like, there was one time Dort hit a 3 to cut it to like 11 or 12 with like 4-ish minutes left, so that it was somewhat of a chance still.
Mm-hmm.
And Caruso runs through this pass that's to Jokic in the middle of the paint, and it's tipped. And that ball just falls right.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It just felt like he was always there and then was able to lay everything in.
Yeah.
Or like
Yeah.
Russell would miss a layup, or someone would miss a layup, and he would be right there in the middle of the lane, catch it, and just like tap it back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just not the Thunder's night. They'll bounce back. Let's talk about the fun Nuggets game from Sunday afternoon, 127-103. Thunder win. As we mentioned before, Shea dropped 48 and 5 on 2 of 11 shooting from 3.
well, oh man, just yeah.
I mean, he shot 15 of 32 overall, and I saw someone on Twitter mention it's like he's been shooting so well, but even without the efficiency that he's shown from 3, there were several times in that game where he'd be on a fast break or just kind of like a slow forming fast break where they didn't get back in time, and he'd act like he's going to pull up from 3, and they immediately bite at, and he has just an easy layup at the rim because of that threat that he shot so much, and even not so that he's like shot that well, because he has, but just the threat that he'll shoot it, which he like. I mean, last year you'd look at the stats, he'd be like 1 of 2 from 3, like maybe.
Right.
He was not taking a lot of threes. So that's a huge positive, even in a 2 for 11 game. He was amazing. He had a 7-0 run in that fourth quarter last night that kind of put the game away. I think even with him doing that, what Dub did yesterday is exactly the Dub that you need in the playoffs, that you're like, we're going to go win a championship.
He was 3 total statistics away from a triple-double. He played incredible. He needed 1 more rebound and 2 more assists, and they didn't play the last 2 minutes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and he had 6 points at halftime.
Yeah, he
played 6 points in the game and 6 points at halftime.
And I feel like he's shooting the 3 ball better too, and more confidently than he has at the beginning of the season. If you remember, like the first couple preseason games, he was shooting the ball really, really well from 3
and shooting like 8 a game.
Yeah, and shooting a ton. And then for some reason, I think the first half of the season he just wasn't shooting that well, so he kind of fell back. And last night he was 2 for 4. But I think he's been shooting the ball a lot better recently. Knock on wood. Whatever.
Maybe his wrist being hurt actually is a benefit to that. But I was out of town, so I was watching it on TV, and it was on ABC, so the ESPN people were on it, and it was freaking Bob Myers, who I don't know why he is a commentator. He always gets Warriors games, and it's just the most biased thing ever. He talks about when he talks about the Warriors. But anyway, at halftime, he was talking about how he was kind of disappointed in Jalen Williams and Jamal Murray, and he said, it ended up being true, so I guess that's one of the reasons why he's on the broadcast, that whichever secondary star shows out in the second half is going to win the game. And as we mentioned before, Jamal Murray did not play well in that first game, and Dub came out, had 20 points in the second half, 13 in the fourth quarter, and just, I mean, he didn't have like a bad first half. He didn't score it. He obviously we've talked about his defense before. He was setting up teammates. He just wasn't scoring, which is what the team needed. And he did that in the second half. He had a move where he was at, just above the free throw line. He takes one dribble in and does this pivot turnaround jump shot. That's like, I don't even know if you attempt that in horse.
Yeah. I wasn't sure he spotted the rim before he shot that. It was a wild shot, and it was on Russ,
but it wasn't wild. It was so like, it looked very, very obviously on purpose.
Controlled.
Like, very controlled. I couldn't think of the word. I mean, it was beautiful. It was like, if you're hitting those shots, I mean, as we did tonight to Denver's like, tip your cap. Great game, bud. But he played well. Another thing, Chet played well. He had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 1 of 2 from 3. I'd like to see him shoot a little bit more. He had 4 blocks in this game. So his defense, I mean, you can tell when we're playing Denver, the 2 big lineup is going to be what we play the most against Denver if we play them in a series, because Hartenstein is one of the better players at guarding Jokic. I say one of the better. I'm not saying he's like shutting him down, because you're not going to. But when you have him taking on Jokic and all that physicality, and Chet playing the rover, Especially when like Westbrook's on the court and you have a non-shooter out there, you can put Chet on him.
Westbrook made 3 threes today. He's a shooter.
Do it, please. I'm glad he hit 3 threes. Try it again in May or whenever we play them, if we play them. Please do it. But that was obviously a strategy. The 2 big lineup looked great in the second half against Denver. It dug them a hole. I mean, it was like 14-3 to start. Everybody on Twitter's like, it's a failed experiment. It's like, guys, just stay the course. But Chet was a plus 32 in the box score last night.
Incredible.
And tonight he was not plus 32. He was minus 20.
Yeah.
So bit of a swing. I say that Shea was minus 18 tonight. So all the starters just
Jalen Williams plus 8.
Coincidence? I think not.
I think not.
But yeah, that fourth quarter was huge. And I'm not saying it eases concerns, because until we get to the playoffs, those concerns are going to be there, because nothing can replicate it. Obviously, you like seeing it against a team that, I mean, somewhat of a playoff atmosphere against one of the best teams in the West, probably the second best team in the West. And what he was able to do with that second unit was awesome. Hopefully his hip strain isn't anything that's too serious. And, hopefully I'm fine with giving him time. I mean, we play Boston on Wednesday, who probably won't have Kristaps. He'll be missed. I think it's even more so a statement of all these people that are saying like Dub's terrible, Dub needs to pick it up. I mean, sometimes that can be true. Everyone goes through spurts, but the whole debate between Dub and Chet as who is the second best player on this team. Yeah, I know there's an asterisk right now because Chet's still coming back from injury and
but
getting
part of it
under
is
him.
being healthy.
Part of it's being healthy, and a part of it is I don't view Chet as like a secondary ball handler.
No, I feel like every time, and this, he needs. I don't know how to say this, but every time he dribbles against a smaller guard, he's dribbling so high. He tries to get so low and so high, and out. It looks awkward, and it looks like he's not going anywhere. He's got, I don't know how KD does it. KD brings it closer to his body or something, and maybe is more straight up. But I feel like Chet should be able to dominate a smaller guard. He should be able to like back him in and then hit a turnaround jumper. But he always tries to straight line drive them, and they're able to stay in front of him because they're quicker.
And then he does that reverse back, and everyone knows he's going to do it. That spin back.
Mm-hmm. And then they lose, or he'll lose the ball. I feel like a couple times he's just kind of like has lost the ball and given it up. So he needs to work on his secondary ball handling, or his ball handling in general, and like his attacks, because I feel like it's just like not there. And granted, he broke his hip, so like he'll have a whole summer to kind of figure it out. But to your point, Jalen Williams is the second best player on the team, and I think when Chet is healthy and doing all those things, I still think it's Jalen Williams.
Maybe not like even like best, but like most important to like get from point A to point B.
Well, it's just like Chet, and I mean Chet has the potential to be such an incredible player, but there's a little bit of it like it's so novel and it's so like new to have a big player who can shoot and block a bunch of shots and drive.
Ooh, I think we lost Chris. We'll see if we can get him back. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, one, hopefully Dub's fine, and two, how healthy Chet's able to get and how comfortable he's able to hit, to feel going into the playoffs. Because Dub, even when he's not playing bad, he's at least defending at a high rate. He's probably the most valuable defender on this team. I mean, I know Dort's up there, and I don't want to take away from Dort, but what Dub's able to do, from just a versatility standpoint of taking, he could guard Jokic if we needed to. He could also guard Jamal Murray. He can switch 1 through 5. And his length and what he's able to do, and then also his rebounding when he needs it, his playmaking on the other end when he's setting people up. It shows how important it is, and I get why people are like, okay, this team only goes as far as Dub can take them. But Chris had a little technical difficulty, so we're going to solo this until his computer is able to reboot. One stat to point out, I was looking at some stuff after the game, and it was like Denver should play every game, the entire playoffs, second night of a back-to-back. And looking at their record this year alone on the second night of back-to-back, they are 12-1, which is on no rest, is what it's called. The Thunder, in comparison, is 9-4 this year, which is a great record. I mean, usually it's considered like a scheduled loss because you don't have, usually you can't even guarantee that the team you're playing is also on the second night of a back-to-back. But Denver's just playing well with that. I mean, Jokic and Murray were even questionable going into tonight's game. But it's, again, you tip your hats to Denver. A lot of people have asked me, who do I fear the most in the West, or who worries me the most coming out of the playoffs? It's Denver. And I don't think that's crazy. I mean, LeBron hurt his groin on Saturday night. He's going to miss a week or two for the Lakers. I think they're going to be the 2-3 in terms of seeding coming this year. So hopefully the Thunder only have to play one of them if that holds true. But Jokic, as much as I think Shea's the MVP, Jokic is probably the best player in the league right now. And when you put that player into a 7-game series, it's hard to beat. And if you have a game like tonight, where, as we mentioned, the Nuggets are shooting 70+% from 3 in a second half, I mean, it felt like they didn't miss a 3 in that fourth quarter. Those games can happen, and they're not, some people say they're like, 99 times out of 100, you're not going to see that. I think it's a bit more likely than that. They're NBA players, especially if the Thunder are defending like that, and you don't have your secondary playmaker. But that is absolutely something that can happen once or twice in a series out of 7 games. Do I think that can happen 4 times? No. I don't think Denver's role players are good enough. I don't think Jamal Murray is consistent enough. I was telling my buddy Jason, who got me the courtside passes before the game, Jamal Murray in the Olympics was awful. And I was going for Canada. Yeah, you're back.
Oh, what's up? I'm back.
Yeah. Phew. I was having to solo this, so we're going to have to cut that whole...
Oh, no. Keep the solo in. Keep the solo in.
But I was just talking about how I fear Denver the most in the playoffs, and I was about to mention when I was watching the pregame tonight, I was telling Jason, who got me the tickets, that it's crazy how in the Olympics this year I was pulling for Canada because I wanted Shea and Dort to get a medal. And Jamal Murray could not have played worse in that Olympic Games. Just awful. Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it might as well have been benched. I mean, a few times he was. I mean
they ended up
probably a little nicked up, but he was bad.
They ended up going...
I might have lost Chris again. But he was bad in the Olympics, and I told him, I was like, there's going to be a game, maybe even a series, against the Nuggets that Jamal Murray is going to play like the Jamal Murray that everyone thinks is, probably the biggest snub of a player to never make an all-star team. And he's going to go off. And he went off tonight. And I'm not saying that I think he'll go off. We lost Chris again. I'm not saying that I think he's going to go off for a full series, but he's a guy that can get hot. He can have a PJ Washington series. We do have the guards that match up with him. Obviously, it didn't matter tonight, and you tip your cap. But that's why Denver's so scary. I mean, I think it's a beneficial thing that Russ is on that team, because I don't think Russ has really been a positive for a playoff team since 2016. But when you have him hitting 3 threes, you had Peyton Watson, who got benched on during Sunday's game. He played 6 minutes and got pulled out, did not play well at all. He comes in and shoots 4 of 4 from 3 tonight. I don't think that's going to happen 4 times in a 7-game series. And so that's why I would still pick the Thunder, But of all the teams that I don't want to see in the playoffs that I think we will, it's Denver. Especially, I mean, obviously, just in the Western Conference alone, then you work into the Celtics and Cavs. And I honestly, my advice to everyone is just focus on the Western Conference right now because anything that pushes into the Eastern Conference, the finals is a crapshoot. It's the it goes to show tonight because you had Aaron Gordon, who we've kind of glossed over, missed. He played 7 minutes in the game on Sunday, and then he came back and couldn't play tonight. You had Dub get hurt tonight; he couldn't play. You don't know how injuries are going to play out in a playoffs, especially when. I mean, I was talking to my wife tonight at the game. The NBA Finals they start June 5th. It's March 10th. And there's about 18 games left in the regular season. And then you have basically a month and a half, almost 2 months of playoffs. And you got to hope that in the most highly intense basketball games in the world, that your top 8 to 10 guys can stay healthy. And it's whoever has the best injury luck, not only for themselves, but then also who you're like if Aaron Gordon's calf acts up or if Dub's hip becomes an issue. LeBron hurt his groin, as I mentioned. Like, you don't know how those things are going to play out over a month and a half of highly intense basketball games. And so that's why winning a championship, although I do think the NBA has a formula that lets the cream rise to the top and you don't have as many Cinderella runs, I think there's only been 2 teams seeded 4 or higher that have even made the finals in the last like 20 or 30 years.
Shout out Jimmy Butler and the Heat.
And Luka Doncic last year with the Mavs. Rest in peace, that Mavs team. Whoops.
Rest in pepperonis.
But that, I mean, all that to say, the playoffs are a crapshoot. We'll see if we see Denver again. It was a fun couple games. I wish we would have won tonight. The crowds were great. But you tip your hat and you pray that Dub's going to be fine. I mean, like you said, he played like 3 minutes after he got hurt, going up and down. Obviously not at 100%, but at least on the court. We'll see what it looks like. I doubt he plays Wednesday night in Boston. Then the Thunder go to Detroit on Friday night, Saturday night, and they're playing well. They're currently the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, and I think
Who would have thunk it?
They have a 5-game lead on the play-in. So it's gonna be a tough week, especially if Dub's hurt. But this team's deep, and all these tests matter most. I mean, they're just good when it comes to preparing for the playoffs, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Before we get out of here, one thing I want to hit on. I don't know if you noticed, and you might have heard it on the postgame show, but to start this game, Mark got a tee in the first quarter, which was awesome. I love when Mark gets tees.
Yeah.
It's very calculated when he gets tees. He also got a delay of game warning, and did you see why?
Yeah, I heard him explain it. It's a pretty funny maneuvering of the rules.
It's genius.
Yeah,
it's genius.
It really is. I mean, it's fun to have him as your coach.
So what happened was Mark felt that the ref was allowing Jokic to basically take the ball out from, like, if we made a shot or if there was a turnover and the ref's supposed to like hand the ball to the player and pass it in. Mark thought that Jokic was getting away with getting the ball too fast and just running. Like he wasn't respecting the flow of the game. Jokic was being able to dictate pace, and Mark was pissed about it. And so he believes, and I think he's right, but there's a rule that just because a player is at the scorer's table does not mean that they have to check in.
Right.
So there was a couple times, probably like 2 or 3 minutes into the game, I see him like point down to Dylan Jones and just like gives him the little like, hey, come here with his finger. And he
hold on. Before you do that, did you see when Dylan Jones first got the point? So it was like first quarter or something. I saw Mark point. Dylan Jones points at himself and says, "Me?" He was like, "What?"
He was like, "I ain't playing tonight. Like, I know you mix stuff up, but I'm not playing tonight." So he finally like goes and stands behind Mark, and Mark basically was like, "He's going to stand behind me the whole time, and I'm going to decide when I want to put him in.
Yeah, so I think the way Mark explained it, that rule is if a player is at the scorer's table, the coach can decide whether or not to put him in at the dead ball. And so Mark was just going to every time at the dead ball just say, I'm not putting him in.
So they had to at least stop and check.
Like, just slow down Jokic.
And there are some whistles that went Denver's way for sure, and we weren't getting a lot of calls in that first quarter. But Mark was just unhappy in general, and he said, he was like, if I hadn't gotten called for a delay of game warning, he would have stood there the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's so calculated on all that stuff. He obviously knows all the rules. So
the fans should be very excited he's their coach.
Yeah. Hopefully he's like a Greg Popovich for this franchise, and it's trending that way. It's still early. He needs to go win a championship to start. But yeah, that was a fun little anecdote. And then secondly, I think what was interesting in that especially fourth quarter when Denver was hitting all those shots and we went cold. Mark said he was like, they threw stuff at us we hadn't seen before, because they were running a zone, but it was kind of a zone and a man where they were doubling Shea. But I mean, they were leaving corner threes. Dort, we haven't even touched on, hit 8 threes tonight. That's a career high for him. But Mark's like, back to the drawing board. Like, I got to be better, because he didn't have like a great solution for that. So shout out to the Nuggets for showing us that on March 10th.
Yeah, shouts out. And so you mentioned Mark was like, he took full credit, or not credit. He took full blame. He was like, yeah. I need to be better. Can we talk about how we are the second youngest team in the league? I think there's some have
the youngest
first. Yeah, we might be the youngest team in the league. Shout out Oos. But the maturity it showed from, Mark, who's a younger coach, but Shea and Dort afterwards were giving Denver the props, not saying anything like
no poster board material.
Yeah. They were just like, they beat us tonight. Shouts out to them. And Shea's like, yeah, they've shown us that, and we have to be better. It wasn't like they weren't blaming the refs or not blaming anything. It was just what the maturity they have shown throughout the season as the second youngest or the youngest team in the NBA is incredible.
That's incredible. That out. And I think, it was the same thing. It was the same story in that Timberwolves game where we gave up that fourth quarter 20-point lead, where the offense, although it looked like we were missing shots and the flow wasn't there, they say that was not our problem. And I think that's true tonight too, where it all starts on the defensive end with this team. And if they're not getting stops and forcing turnovers, regardless of if they're hitting shots or not, those turnovers and rebounds that lead to slow developing fast breaks, that's the strength of this team. And not only that, but the momentum that is created with all of those is just, it feels like an avalanche in the fourth quarter. And lastly, before we wrap up, I think one thing that was interesting, I almost felt like, and I should have touched on this earlier, I almost felt like we saw two versions of Shea, where on the ABC game where he knew that it was kind of like all eyes are on us, there was no other game going on in the NBA. It was a Sunday afternoon, so everyone's huddled around the TV. He was like, I'm going to go win this game. And like we said, he was 2-11 from 3. Not that he shot horribly, but he went and hunted shots, and he still had 8 rebounds, 5 assists. So it's not like he wasn't, getting his teammates involved. But I think he played more like he would in the playoffs on Sunday, especially in a game where like he's like, we have to go win it. And tonight, it felt like he was setting up his teammates more, as he's talked about so much, of like, I'm going to get them comfortable on hitting these shots in these big games. And they have and they haven't. I'll never forget Wiggins hitting 4 threes in the fourth quarter of the next game to win that one.
Saving basketball.
Yeah. And so, credit to Denver, because obviously they threw something new that Mark said that worked. But it's also like we were still generating decent shots, but they just weren't from Shea. And when Shea's shooting those shots versus Case and Wallace and Caruso and Dort shot great tonight, and those guys need to take those shots in the playoffs. But I love when Shea's shooting those shots more so than anyone else.
I totally agree. I think he'll be a lot less passive. He'll be kind of that attack guy. But I think tonight he was using it, like you said, kind of like, and I don't want to say like we won the first one, so the second one doesn't matter, but like you feel good about splitting them. And if you win the first one, you have more room to experiment in the second one and try to get your teammates going, try to get them comfortable against a team that you will probably see in the playoffs, or you might see have a good chance of seeing in the playoffs.
Yep, agreed. I mean, one last thing with the MVP talk before we get out of here. Jokic had that 30-20-20 game on Friday night, and all the odds went to like Shea minus 200, and Jokic got to like plus 230 or something like that, depending on which book. Most of them still have Shea between -4 and -600 even after this loss. And Jokic probably isn't going to have another opportunity like this to really, obviously go against Shea. There'll be other moments, but if Shea keeps playing like he is, it's his. So
100%.
But yeah, it would have been more fun to pod after last night's game, but probably more 100%. To talk about tonight.
There's always more to learn from a loss. Shout out Dallas fans. Have you seen the stuff where they've just been chanting "Fire Nico" at random places?
Yeah, what was the last place they did it? Like, wasn't even a sporting event.
It was Medieval Times.
Yeah.
There's a Medieval Times. I think we drive by it when you drive down to downtown Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And I think they were chanting "Fire Nico" while the horses were running around.
Man, that man.
So things are going good in Dallas. Things are going good in Dallas. Did you give a shout out to Jalen Williams, the happiest player on the planet, for his career triple double, first career triple double?
I did not. Yeah, I hadn't touched on the Blazers game because you were in and out, so I didn't know where to go.
Sorry.
But yeah, before we get out, I mean, Blazers came into town. We set pretty much everybody. Wiggs had 30. Jay Will had a triple-double, which goes to show that if you're a center and you run the offense through you, triple-doubles are not that hard to get.
Shout out Jokic. I just, we were talking to the maturity of this team. It shows maturity to go out there, and it shows the talent of this team to go out there and beat a pretty good young Blazers team without, six of your top six guys. So I love this team. I love their fight, their togetherness, their happiness, their joy to play basketball. Watching people do something joyfully is so addicting. It's so fun to watch someone do something joyfully.
Yeah, Mark called it a program win.
Yeah,
and that could not be more accurate.
Right. I think it's more fun to watch Jalen Williams play basketball than it is. Well, never mind. But Jokic,
take that back.
But Jokic always seems like he's having a bad time. But, Jalen Williams is all smiles. He's always having a good time. And that's just more fun to watch people do things they love. So, shout out the team. Program win. Program loss tonight. We lose as a program. We win as a program.
But we're going to be okay.
I like calling the Thunder a program. Can we start doing that?
That feels like an AAU team almost. So.
It feels very Oklahoma, because we have we talk about college football a lot. College football is like king a lot of places, and definitely in Oklahoma. And we talk about the program, the state of the program, kind of thing. It feels good to call the Thunder a program.
Hey, as long as that program wins a championship, that's all I care about. But
it's true.
Cool. Well, appreciate everybody for listening. We'll get back to you soon with some more information. Thunder up, and we'll talk to y'all next time. See ya.
All night long, party, we like to party.